Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Metal podcast. My name is Pia, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm here on my desk together with my baby. My baby is asleep, but maybe you might hear one or another baby sound. And I'm here with 3 other people, and I think it's the first time that all 4 of us made it to an episode.
Hello, I'm Suzana, my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, I'm Martha. My pronouns are also she, her.
And I'm Kiki, and my pronouns are also she, her. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Bleeding Metal podcast. We're bringing you another episode with the team. And yeah, this is the first time where it's the 4 of us together, our new team that has already been introduced, especially on our socials. So don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram. We have a very interesting topic that we've been wanting to talk for a while.
Yes, and the idea was, or the original question that we asked ourselves is, why do many men not talk about feminism and war on women and stuff like that? And we figured out that some maybe don't know how to do that. And then I said, well, for me as a white person, it's also difficult to talk about racism. And so we just thought, well, you could interview me about racism and we see where we go. But before that, we have news we want to discuss. And one of the news is from where Suzana lives, from Brazil.
Yes, I think it was news everywhere in the world, unfortunately, that we had the biggest flood in the south of Brazil, the biggest in 80 years. And I don't even know how to describe it, because if you look at the videos in the news, it looks like you're watching a movie. It's epic proportions. We are having cities and neighborhoods being completely evacuated. Even the capital city of Rio Grande do Sul, Porto Alegre, the whole city, big parts of it are underwater and were evacuated. So far, around 160 people already dead, and of course, homeless people, and the physical damages are still being evaluated. We don't even know yet. So, of course, the whole country is, trying to help out any way we can. And I've listed some metal musicians from Brazil and also from outside of Brazil who are also helping. I'm pretty sure I've left out some people because I think a lot of people are helping, which is great. But I would like to just mention some. I think one of the biggest names that are helping out is Metallica. They have a foundation called All Within My Hands, and the foundation is founded and kept by the band. And through this foundation, they donated $100,000 to relief efforts in Brazil. They donated the money to another organization called Direct Relief, and they work with the Pan American Health Organization. So I guess those are institutions that people outside of Brazil can also look up and donate through them. Also, guitarist Kiko Loureiro, who was a guitar player for Megadeth for the longest time, and also he is the founder of Angra, one of the biggest Brazilian bands. He is auctioning a guitar and also reverting the proceeds to help out in the floods relief effort in Rio Grande do Sul. He has a music school, and his music school is also donating proceeds to the relief effort. Edu Falas, he was also a singer for Angra for a long time, and now he's in his solo career. He is doing a raffle for a acoustic guitar, also used in recording many of his famous albums, and the proceeds are also going to relief efforts. Also, Fernanda Lira from Crypto, one of the nicest new bands coming out from Brazil. She was one of the 3 members of Nervosa for many years, and she left the band some years ago and started Crypto with an all-female group as well. And they are getting momentum outside of Brazil. And she is very political. She has always been. Her Instagram account is super funny, but also very interesting. And she made a video in English to her foreign fans outside of Brazil. And she listed a lot of organizations that are taking donations from foreigners from outside of Brazil. And I guess I could just give you the link, and we have that in the show notes. And you could also look her up. But anyway, as I was saying before we started recording, some of those campaigns can be, will have a time limit. So even if you're listening to this episode 2 months from now, and maybe you can't participate in some of the campaigns, I'm pretty sure the relief efforts will go on for quite a while, because it's going to take a long time to just rebuild and clean and everything. So I'm pretty sure that there will still be ways that we can help out.
And not only that, just being aware of the climate crisis is really important for all of us worldwide. Brazil is not the only region that is affected by floods. Marta probably knows more about that, but we can't close our eyes to the climate crisis, and we need to take action, especially make pressure on our politicians to do better, so that we can at least survive a little longer, even though these changes are not stoppable anymore, sadly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kiki, for mentioning that, because this is something that we have been discussing a lot here, because, of course, of our immediate problem. But you are so very right that it's not only about helping out people who are in trouble right now, because we have to do it, because it's an emergency, of course. But we can't just, after this is not the first news on TV anymore, and then we can't just forget about it. And it's a lot more about putting pressure in our politicians to act on it, to stop denying climate change. There has been reports about how this tragedy could have been avoided. There was studies and reports, and it could have been maybe not 100% avoided, but things could have been done to help people and protect people and make it not as horrible as it was right now. And what we absolutely lacked was political action on it. So yes, you're absolutely right that donating is cool and is what we can do as citizens right now, but we can forget that this is a topic that we have to talk about forever, and we have to keep on voting depending on what politicians talk about it. This has to be on the agenda forever. We can't forget that this is a thing, and we can't deny that climate change is happening and killing people and destroying lives in cities. So yes, it's more a political thing than ever before, and I think it's important that metal musicians are talking about it. And I know of so many musicians and bands that have been talking about climate change and the environment. So this is something that we have to keep an eye on, and definitely put a spotlight on people who are talking about this, because we absolutely need to. Yes.
Absolutely. Another news that just came out or was announced recently, but when you are listening to this episode, maybe the song is even out. ELECTRIC CALLBOY will have a feature together with Babymetal. I think the song is called Ratatata. And Kiki has something to say about that.
Well, I was shocked and surprised by that collaboration, but I guess somewhere in the metal industry it was foreseeable. ELECTRIC CALLBOY mentioned at the premiere of their concert movie film thing that they were working on an important international collaboration, and that the only thing that they could already reveal by then was that the band they were going to work with also likes to dance as much as they do. Anyway, I haven't been a big fan of ELECTRIC CALLBOY for long. I came really late to the party, to PS party. And I just started following them on social media, etc. I was enjoying their music a lot, and I was also quoted on one of our episodes recently for saying that at least they're taking one woman on tour because they have Fuckboy, and so
they need one to sing the female part.
Exactly. Since they have a collaboration originally with Conquer Divide, also an all-female metal band from the States, and that song is Fuckboy, well, they want to perform it live, and so now they have to take a woman, or rather a band with a female singer who can do that, on tour with them, like Future Palace in the EU, like As Everything Unfolds in the UK. Concrete Divide themselves went on tour with them in North America, and that was great. I don't know if it was in that vein of keeping their collaborations diverse that they went into their collaboration with Babymetal, or if it's just, kind of wanting to tag along with the band's success. They have been on a lot of festival lineups in the past few years, and I have mixed feelings about this band. As longtime listeners from the podcast know, I regularly live stream on Twitch, and we have music discussion stream every month. And since last year, I actually made Babymetal a banned term on my stream. If you say that word, it will be banned. You will be timed out. And if you're new, you will get an explanation that will not tell you much. And it is because I've had several discussions with my community there about it, and I will just not be convinced to like them. Because first of all, nobody can force you to like something. Second of all, I understand that their music objectively, and just their music, is high quality, catchy, good, sure. The band stands for way more than that, though. And leaving aside that we know that it's a band that was put together, that they didn't even listen to metal before they went into this band.
And they were kids, right? They were 14 and 16.
Yes, they were kids. And that is the aesthetic that they portray themselves in, and that is what I find deeply problematic. The sexualization of minor women, minor girls at that point. Even if by now they're probably in their 20s and are more able to consent to their objectification or their marketing with sex sells, whatever. What I have a problem with is this whole aesthetic of schoolgirls that are cute. And this is where we link the topic with what we're about to talk about, racism, because they're not the first to do this, right? I personally think it was problematic when Britney did it, and it's still problematic now. The schoolgirls, the short plaid skirts and pigtails, and making that like a sexy thing.
And Britney was also a minor when she did it. Apparently she was 17, so...
Right.
And they were all excited about that she's a virgin. That was the big topic.
Yeah, exactly.
She was asked several times. I think she had a relationship with Justin Timberlake then, and everything they talked about was her virginity.
Yeah, but that is the thought process that I was launched into when I started to think for myself, why don't I like Babymetal? First of all, the name even, ew. Babymetal, ew. I don't know. And I can always go back to our trajectory or my experience, especially in the European symphonic metal scene, female-fronted metal scene, just a female-fronted, it's not a genre, but still. We had a lot of people say that they were just supporters of women in metal. Supporters of women in metal, that's why genres were not important. That's why they were the same people going to Arch Enemy as going to see Epica. It was the same people. But also, these were also very beautiful, sexy women on stage. And the audience was mainly men in their 50s. If that is the same audience that we're targeting with a Babymetal concept, it gets a little icky and it gets very dangerous. We cannot close our eyes to the realities of the world that gender-based violence is a big problem that we tackle in all of the countries and all of the different layers of society. So I will just not stand for to have something be cool that can be this dangerous and that perpetuates so many stereotypes and that just gives young minds the wrong ideas.
I totally agree. I have to admit, when Babymetal started, I was a fan, and I also visited a concert of them, but simply because I found the concept was really cool, because I also liked mangas, and for me it was more this manga kind of thing. And I also found the idea interesting to mix this babyish vocals that they partly have. They have a really, really good main vocalist, but the other two, back then 14-year-old girls, also had some singing parts that sounded very childish. I found that very interesting. So I followed them, but back then I myself didn't sexualize them, but I also did not think about it that much back then. So now that I'm older and wiser and look at this with other lenses, so to speak, I can see the difficulty. And I just had this conversation yesterday with my husband, who said, well, Electric Callboy have this feature with Babymetal. And I was like, yeah, but I'm in neither of these bands anymore. So yeah, I also won't pay much attention, I guess.
Yeah, I skip it. I skip that band. I didn't listen to their collab with Bring Me the Horizon, and I won't listen to their collab with the Electric Callboy. And I do understand, and people always defend the band with the fact that, but there are so many girls and women in Asia who now feel represented and who now feel empowered by them. To me, it's just proof that we need more visibilization and more representation of women in metal, and of also ethnic representation, in more diversity in metal as well.
They could have done all this without this schoolgirl stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they could have used the name Babymetal combined with the style of singing, but they didn't necessarily had to put them in the sexualizing school dresses.
Yeah, and that is where the thing gets tricky with not only with misogyny but also racism, because Asian women are especially objectified, and especially because of their youthful looking features,
and because they are so small.
Yeah. Also, it's a huge thing in porn for some reason, so it starts to get weird, and that is why I do think that we have to see this through other lenses as well, and to go just deeper into the direction of racism, and why we all still need to deconstruct ourselves and do better in that sense. I have to confess that as a woman of color myself, and I mean that it's not really it may come as a surprise for a lot of people, but even in like Ecuador and I think I can speak for the rest of Latin America, it's a deeply racist society. Like, we are racist against each other, and it sucks. It needs to be processed and changed and deconstructed and transformed. And that is why I have to ask myself that question. Like, am I not into the whole manga anime aesthetic because of my own prejudice? Or is it just really some sort of more objective thing that I don't find it appealing? I don't know.
I think I am kind of thinking alike with you with the whole manga thing. I was more into Japanese and Asian TV shows and books and comic books, graphic books, and video games. And I kind of got through out of that as well. It pushed me off a little bit. And yes, I agree with you. I'm also kind of like, oh, am I doing this because of my own prejudice or because this is really something that rubs me off? And I think it may be a little bit of both. Hopefully, I can work it out in my own head better. But I do feel that it is tricky because, like you said, I think we need more representation. Because if we keep seeing Asian women inside this tiny little box with those labels, like Asian women are the petite women who are sexy, who are shy, who are delicate, who likes dancing, and talks like that, if that's all we see, that's definitely something that doesn't appeal to me personally. And again, I feel pushed off the whole thing because it rubs me the wrong way. It feels sexualized, it feels abusive, it feels like exploiting one side of a personality that, I don't know, maybe some girls in Asia are actually like that, but not all of them. It feels like sometimes it's just fake, it's done on purpose. So you will watch a movie or play a video game with a wonderfully written story, amazing plot, great story behind it, and then you have amazing characters, but the woman just happens to have huge boobs for no reason. She's an awesome character. You want to play the character. You want to read about her or watch her movie, her story. The whole thing is very well developed, but we are just going to give her the tiniest costume possible. So this just throws me off the story entirely. And I know that it's a tiny, well, not tiny because they give them really big boobs, but it's one detail that really just ruins the whole experience for me, because the story is great. I want to watch it. I want to play this game. But then why is the woman the only character showing her body more than anyone else? And why is this so physically impossible? Like, they really get out of their way to draw a costume or a body type that doesn't really even work in real life. So it really throws me off the whole thing. But I agree with you that the problem is that we are getting this very one-sided version of Japanese culture that is maybe not even 100% authentic Japanese. So the whole thing gets messy. And maybe what we are getting is also a very masculine perspective on what beautiful, interesting Asian woman looks like. And that's a very masculine way of portraying those women. So for me, it's just really not appealing. Babymetal didn't do anything for me. I was like, oh no. And I felt it was really fake. I really felt like it was like, they're doing this for the shock factor. Like, what is the silliest thing that they can put together with metal that will make people go, we hate this? Like, they're using the hate to kind of promote the whole thing. I don't know. It just felt really, really fake. And then on top of the sexism, then it just doesn't do anything for me.
Yes and no. There are a couple of bands from Japan who already do stuff like that. There is also, I think it's a panda. They have a TV kids show that is also an anime with a panda, and they play heavy metal. I think the Metallica drummer also had something to do with that. I saw that in a documentary. That's part of their culture in a way, also that they don't care about these genres like we do it. They just mix whatever they want. So that's quite interesting. And that was just one thing that attracted people around the world, that they were interested in that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And it's sad because also I want to be a person who supports women in metal, of course. And I don't want to be gatekeepy, like, oh, they're mixing genres, so I don't like it. Or they are mixing metal with a style of music that I don't personally like it, so I'm going to trash it. I don't really like dancing and choreography in my metal, so yeah, this is trash. And I don't want to be this person. So it gets really, really tricky for me.
I think it's the opposite to bimbocore, because bimbocore, the women empowered themselves to do that. And I was looking up what Scene Queen does, and she also looks older, so she's maybe double the age than Babymetal were when they started. So I think that's the big problem on this. If they would have been 10 years older maybe, and not a casting band, if they would have said, well, this is our thing, we want to do that, and we stand behind this 100%, we want to bring our culture to the world and everything, then it would be completely different. But they just took kids. I mean, they're teenagers. I don't know, everything about it is wrong.
Yeah.
I had the same question with like, where's the difference? Like, if you just look at the stage and you're like, okay, there's like a woman and she's wearing like something sexy. Is it like a school uniform or not? So where is the difference to bimbocore? And that's exactly what you said, Pia. So is the person like empowering themselves, making their own decisions, doing it on purpose, or is it, I don't know, maybe like just a patriarchy and capitalism behind it? Like, how can we exploit this situation the most? Okay, let's just do that. So that's the line for me.
Absolutely. And I think both of you, Suzana and Marta, you have great points. I was going to say that I really like the attitude that Suzana was mentioning. I really want to be supportive of all women in metal, especially more women in metal of color. And I don't want to be the true metal gatekeeper kind of stroll. Like that is not who I am. But I also want to keep my critical eye. And to what Marta was saying, I think it can get really tricky for me too, because in theory, the line is absolutely clear. My feminism is such that women have to be empowered. Women have to be the decision makers. And if they then decide to go on stage with a skimpy outfit, to go the whole sex sales route for their, for whatever they're selling, for their work, for their art, for whatever it is, or not, if they, whatever you do, your body, your choice, your life, all good. But you should be the one deciding. And when you know that it's something that's put together and you're thrown into that, I want to keep away. But sometimes it's not as easy to know. You don't really always know if the decision is really theirs. There's a lot of coercion in different levels. We know from the classic music industry and from all of the show and entertainment industry in general. We know from extreme cases like Me Too how coercion can work. We know that in a more pervasive even way, sometimes you think you have no choice than to do that, than to make yourself the object of the sexual attention of others in order to make it as an artist, as an entertainer. Sometimes you actually believe that's what you have to do. Would you do it otherwise? Would you do it if there were more fairness in terms of opportunities, in terms of if there were more transparency in terms of the music or the show business industry, and all of these industries and all of the things? Would you still do it? That's a different question. And also, sometimes it can be even parody. As I said, I need a parody under a sarcasm sign. Please, I need stickers on that, disclaimers. So to me, it sometimes can get really tricky to differentiate between, is this really empowerment, or who is the power behind that aesthetic or marketing? If I want to be a better person and an anti-racist, how can we do that inside of the metal scene?
I feel very in between when the conversation is about race. I don't see myself like in one box or another, which is actually a good thing. But I would really like to ask questions and listen to you talk about that, because I feel like, again, I want to be supportive of more people of color in the music industry. And of course, I think the first step is not to be racist. So, of course, I'm not writing people off because, I don't like the way you look. I'm not going to listen to your music. But I guess it's just the very basic first thing that hopefully everyone listening to us also do that. They do that in their normal everyday life as well. But that is clearly not enough. In Brazil, for example, it's very rare that you will see a black musician playing metal. Heavy metal is not mainstream here, so it can be very elitist. It can be either like an underground thing, like a cousin to punk and hardcore, so that as well. But the famous bands, the big ones, that universe can be it is very elitist. And unfortunately, of course, very, very male and very white as well. So if I don't do anything, and if I just go with the flow, and yes, I'm not trying to be racist on purpose, it will also just so happen that I will only listen to white men playing metal, especially if I focus on the Brazilian market. I happen to listen to a lot of bands from Europe as well, but it also happens to be very white. So if I don't do anything on purpose to broaden my horizons, I will keep on listening to the same. Nothing wrong with the white musicians that I listen to, but how can I be more anti-racist in that sense? And I would like to hear from you, because I don't think I have good answers yet.
I think it starts even before that. So for me, as a white person, I was not aware for a very long time that racism is still a thing. When I grew up, there were some people of color. I personally didn't notice that they experienced that much racism back then. When I think about specific situations now, it looks different to me. But they also found their coping mechanisms, like making fun of themselves, making racist jokes about themselves, so that others don't do that, as a protection for themselves. And that's something that happened very often, and it also kind of worked. The dangerous thing about that is that other people think that it's okay to make these jokes because the black person made a joke about being black and used the N-word for that, so it's okay to use it. So that's very, very dangerous. But I can understand that people want to protect themselves and use this. And on the other hand, to me, it always felt like it's kind of en vogue to be anti-racist, so that people just did it because it was kind of trend, or because it was also easy to say, I'm not a racist, because how can you prove that? It's, from my point of view, different with feminism, because there are way more women in our surroundings than people of color. And then you really have to defend your decision why you hired a man and not a woman. So to come back to your question, I guess when you start thinking about the whole thing and you start being aware of the racism that you have inside yourself, that's the first step. And that also goes on to the music that you're listening to, that you try to find these bands with people of color in them, and then you check them out. And it's absolutely no problem if you don't like their music, because you're not supposed to listen to stuff that you don't like just because there are women in the band or just because there are people of color. But when you continue searching, then you will find bands that you like, and you can specifically support them then, and also be vocal about them and share their stuff on social media and stuff like that. So help them in that way without doing something that is against your own taste. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just about to say right there, you're not obligated to listen to diverse music, but you should give it a try. It might just blow your mind.
Yeah, we had this discussion with what is female-fronted metal, right? That it is not a genre. We were saying this so many times, because you have women, especially front women, in so many styles. So it just doesn't make sense if you say, I don't like female-fronted bands because I don't like Arch Enemy, then check out Nightwish or whatever. So there are so many different styles that people of color do and women do.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good first step to remember that racism could be in you, of course, and hopefully you're trying not to be racist on purpose, but racism is all around you. It's a system. So you have to really work against it and really do it on purpose. Go find people of color in music on purpose. Get out of your way to find them and broaden your horizon, because the system is racist. So if you don't work against it and really impose your will on it, then white people will keep on showing up in your feed, and that's all you're going to listen, because if you listen to one, then there's another and another and another. So if you just open the door for other people in music, then that will happen as well. That maybe if you know one band, the whole lineup is black people, and then you listen to them and you love it, and other bands will show up in your feed, in your algorithm as well, and collaborations will happen, and then your whole horizon will broaden.
To me, one of the key problems. I'm not sure if problem is the right word, but like the stereotype of metal is male and white. So every woman on stage, every person of color on stage is like this token. And so like, I don't know, even like myself, when I see a black metalhead somewhere in the metal crowds, like I notice you, like you're different from the other people around you. Like something must have happened in your life that you, I don't know, don't listen to hip hop, that you listen to metal, like something happened to you. And that's my racist perspective on that. And like, I wish for me to just be like, oh yeah, I mean, like I'm a person of color, I listen to metal, so they do the same. So it's a normal thing. But I always notice these things. I'm like, oh yeah, you're special. Also, we sometimes connect and we look at each other and it's like this brief moment of like, yeah, we know. I don't know. It's really funny. But yeah, the general topic of racism or even feminism is like, you're the crazy person and you're seeing a ghost. And you see it everywhere. And then comes the point where you have to explain to white people or to men that this ghost is actually real. And people always look at you like, yeah, you know the thing about ghosts. Like, I've never seen this ghost. I've never met this ghost. I've never experienced this ghost. So like, you're making something out of this which is not there. And so this is like the thing I wanted to ask Pia, like, how did you manage to see the ghost?
Through podcasts, I think. I was listening, or I'm a curious person in general, and I was listening to several podcasts by people of color who also came up with that topic. And then it became kind of a rabbit hole, because then I had this not as a book, but I was listening to the book.
Audiobook.
The book was Exit Racism by Tupoka Ogette, and she explains the whole thing, or for people like me, that we can understand or can get a feeling of racism. And then I started also thinking about where I might be oppressed as a woman, and then trying to think about this when being a person of color. So I think it's very, very difficult when you're a white man to think about this stuff, because you will never experience sexism or racism. Some people think they do because they had this one situation where the black person was chosen because he was black and I was white. I don't know, that happens sometimes, that people say, oh, I have been affected by racism as well. But that is bullshit. And the deeper you dive into the topic, the more you understand. It still leaves a problem in my head, or I am aware that it is my task to stand up against racism when there is no person of color in the room. Like, not laughing about racist jokes is my favorite step one when somebody wants to change something. Like, you show the other person, well, I'm not on your side. I think differently about this. For me, this is not funny. And the more knowledge you get, the more things you get to understand, or the more perspectives you try to find, the more you become aware of the problem, and then you can speak for these people in a room where they do not exist. So when there are no people of color in the room, then I'm the one who tries to stand up for them and to explain other white people why racism is still a problem. But when there are people of color in the room, I don't know if they would like me to stand up for them, or if they would hate it, because I think that's also an individual thing, that some think I can speak for myself and some think, oh, I don't want to be in focus and I say nothing, but I would be happy if somebody would defend me here. I think there is no solution for that problem, but that's something that often happens in my head.
How are the reactions by like other white people? Like, if you talk to other white people about racism, like, do you feel like they hear you and they understand you, or do you have this experience that now you're seeing the ghost and they don't see the ghost? So like, where's that on the ghost level?
That's also mixed. Like, it's always individuals, and some of them are like, oh, it's interesting that you say that. I haven't seen it like that. And some are interested. And then I can tell them, well, you should read this book to to get educated yourself, because it's not the task of people of color to educate you. You have to do it yourself. And some people are like, no, there is no racism. The ghost doesn't exist because I don't see it. Just like you said, some people, I think, will never learn, because also the example that I had earlier with a guy, or I met a guy, he was in his 50s, I think, and he said, I have black colleagues and they use the N-word for themselves. And so that entitles me, because I have friends who do this, to also use this word. And I was like, no, absolutely not. You should not do this. But yeah, he didn't understand.
I know a person of color, so I am allowed to. Oh wow, yeah, that's like, oh, that's really far. Like, wow.
Some discussions are worth it, and sometimes I think you have the same experience, that it just doesn't make any sense to talk about it because they won't understand anyway. They are too far away from that. And I think it's also, people don't like to make mistakes and to being told they made a mistake, and they just they want to switch topic. Yeah, they are like, you told me that I'm wrong, but I'm not. How can you say I said something wrong? So they get defensive and just want to defend themselves and don't think about the problem anymore.
True. I think it can be really difficult to find the balance between, and I think you have said this before, Pia, you see yourself in the responsibility for speaking up for people of color when there's none in the room, and seeing if you still should when they are. And it's the same conversation that a lot of us have about men should not speak for women. Mm-hmm. But if no one is listening to them, maybe you should. So I've seen a lot of conversations around this right now. Like, if you consider yourself an ally as a stereotypical straight white cis male heterosexual, and you actually think that you are woke enough or evolved enough or smart enough, or I don't know. But if you consider yourself an ally and you are informed, and then you should be the one pointing out the ghost, as Martha was saying, because it is like, some people can really be gaslit into thinking it's not a thing. And like, there is no real sexism because women have the same rights, and there is no racism because everyone has the same rights. You know, it's in the constitutions all over the world. But the world doesn't work as that theory of the constitutions and of the law. My partner, for example, wasn't really aware that there is also racial profiling in Germany. And when he then asked around, he realized, oh, his colleagues who are also people of color do get pulled out of traffic like 1,000 times more than he does, and for absolutely no reason. And all those types of things. And I don't, like, we have to point out that goes to each other. And as you were saying, Pia, it is sometimes a matter of, do I have the energy and am I safe enough to go into this conversation and educating the other person? Or are they absolutely not interested in learning even, and it's just a waste of my time and energy? That is something that we have to evaluate in every case.
Yes. What you just said, the important thing is also that white people listen to other white people more than to people of color when it comes to racism. So when they like to see other people putting themselves as the victim, and then they might not believe them. But that's the same with sexism. If a man points out on sexism, men are more likely to listen to him than when a woman does that. And that's why I think it's so important for me as a white person to do that. Even though I struggle with calling myself an ally, I will stand up against racism when there is no person of color in the room. But then I also think I might put this person in danger. So that's a struggle. And as I said before, I don't have a solution for that. And I think there is not the one solution.
That is true. And I think it comes down to, in the end, racism, as all of the forms of discrimination, I think, are a lot of ignorance, and ignorance not in the mean way, because it has gotten like calling someone ignorant is a heavy insult. I just mean it in the lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom. You know, you have stuff to learn. We all have stuff to learn. At this point, I just wanted to point out, not to take credit that I was ever necessarily the one pointing out the ghosts to Pia, but in our 13 plus years of friendship, I have seen an evolution that I am very proud of you, of all your personal growth and of your willingness and openness to learn. I can recall some of the heavy conversations that we have had throughout the years, and it's been really nice to see this whole journey, and the journey of learning and of seeing more stuff and wanting to stand up and to do the personal work to be able to have the knowledge to stand up for other people of all identities. And I think that is what it comes down to just being open and curious and wanting to see the world from everyone's perspective, and to acknowledge all of the different systems of oppression, all of the different lives we go through. And no one knows it perfectly. This whole thing reminded me of a story that I reposted the other day. It is an article on Medium from Visible by Plus. It is about being bisexual, but it's just very similar. I wanted to read a little bit of this. It says, similarly to the racist and misguided, I don't see color comment. Not caring about sexuality is only available to those who don't experience discrimination and tend to ignore the challenges others may be facing. The author continues, while I may not know what it feels to be black, trans, or disabled, I am perfectly capable of listening, learning, believing, and validating other people's experiences. Moreover, I deeply care about other people's identities and experiences, and I want to learn how they identify, how they perceive themselves and the world, and hear about their journey so far. And I think that is so vital and so true and so important. We don't have all the answers because we don't have all the experiences that other people have. But to try to be post-racism or post-sexism and see everybody has the same rights. I don't see color. I treat everyone the same. That means you haven't really listened and you haven't acknowledged the privilege you are in to be able to say that, because you can't see the experiences and the lives of other people.
First of all, thank you. It means a lot to me that you actually see my journey. And that's basically the essence, that you have to be open to develop, to change your mind, to learn stuff. And then also be kind to yourself and say, well, I was wrong back then when I made these racist jokes myself. And I don't have the opportunity anymore to apologize for that, but I really feel sorry for that. And now I know that it was wrong, but I can forgive myself and then go on the journey. I think that's the most important thing, that you don't hate yourself for that, because then you might go back to where you were before. Then you cannot develop.
Yeah, that's a good insight.
Yeah, I would like to add, and I love that Martha used the word ghost, because I think it happens with every oppressive system everywhere, be that racism and sexism and prejudice against bisexual, homosexual, transsexual people. It happens in pretty much every oppressive system, that it makes itself invisible. It makes itself a ghost. It's part of the system that you don't see it. Because if you see it, it's a lot of work. It's right there for you to challenge. So for white people out there who, like you're saying, Pia, that yes, it's important to grow, but it's also important to be able to maybe not beat yourself up too much, or apologize and fix your mistakes if that's possible without destroying you, because then nobody will want to go on this journey. Maybe one point that we could even use to convince other people, like, don't make this joke, for example, is that you don't see the problem because the problem makes itself invisible. So as I'm not a black woman, but I am a woman, so I do hear a lot of, what does those feminists want anymore? You already have everything. Like Kiki was saying, like the Constitution doesn't favor men anymore, but it happens in just social life. It's still there. It's still a problem. But if you are, for example, if you work in an all-male team at work, you're not going to see what's going on for women. If you're a white and all your friends are white, and one of your white friends make a racist joke, you're not going to see the consequences of that joke. I remember reading it was written by comedian Trevor Noah. He is half black, half white. His dad is a white man and his mom is a black woman, and he's from South Africa. And he was born during apartheid, so in the 80s. So the name of the book is Born a Crime, because at the time he was born, a black woman and a white man couldn't get together and have a child. He is the proof of their parents' crime. And the book is amazing, and he's very funny but very smart. And he talks about how the apartheid in South Africa is the best, quote-unquote, best racist system in the world, because it's very invisible. So what they did was pretty much just divide the population. Like black people can only live in this neighborhood and white people can only live in this neighborhood, of course, the nice neighborhood. And so white people would go on living their lives, worrying about normal everyday things like paying the bills and being late to work and being sick, and never even see black people and what was happening to black people. So they could go on their whole entire lives without having to fight racism, and also going on their whole entire lives without having to be racist on purpose for the racist system to work. So I think it happens that it makes itself invisible, that when you point it out, it looks like you're crazy, like it's not happening. It can be subtle and it can't be hidden. Because if it's obvious, it really depends on white people waking up every day with the sole purpose of treating black people poorly because they want the racism to go on. No one is doing that every day for the rest of their lives. Putting a spotlight on that really, really helps, because it's not a ghost, it's not invisible.
I think we could discuss this forever.
We could go on and on.
Yeah, there are so many layers to that.
Yeah.
But I would say that we leave it here for now with a message to white people: educate yourself. The same for men.
I would say to everyone, to absolutely everyone.
Yeah, believe in ghosts.
Believe in ghosts. Absolutely. Believe in the ghosts that are being pointed out to you.
It's not a ghost, it's very real. You were made to believe that it's not there, but it very much is.
Yeah. Yeah. But also be open and willing to learn more about other people's experiences. Having diverse friends could be a weird goal to have, but what you can actively do is go on YouTube or listen to podcasts by diverse identities. Go on YouTube and listen to content creators, or any other platform, and listen to content creators of diverse backgrounds who are sharing their experiences with you. And also maybe let's reclaim the word ignorant, and let's not be shy of saying, I am a bit ignorant in this topic, but I am open to learn.
Yes, absolutely. Pia mentioned being curious and wanting to learn. So maybe learner is a better word than ignorant. Like, you're curious, you're learning, you're studying, you're educating yourself. All of those things are very positive. That attitude is good.
Yes. And with that said, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening all the way to here. We are at Bleeding Metal Pod on Instagram, and you can listen to us wherever you are listening now. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any episode. Bye-bye.
Yay.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.